guys were in it, did that bye come at a good time or a bad time for you guys?
Oh, probably not with the form we were in, but we needed the rest. We had some guys obviously extremely sore, so they've been able to freshen up and get a couple of guys back from injury, which is nice.
North Hobart? Tough.
Yeah, I suppose for the guys they've won one game. So look, I think the modern game has improved dramatically in defence. Now defence has structure around it, but then I reckon the main nucleus around defence is want. So it doesn't really matter about talent. If they come out and defend really well and put us under pressure, then they have a chance for their talent to take over. So if they bring the heat early on, we've got to make sure that we match that. So for our guys, it's about understanding that, yeah, we expect to win the game, but it's about how we win, and understanding that they will put us under pressure.
Do you change anything, or the message is being consistent, before the bye?
No, the message will stay the same. Yeah, it stays the same pretty much the whole year. So game plan and stuff like that doesn't change at all. It's just more, little bits and pieces we focus on for each week. So this week, off the ball, will be about re-establishing our brand and what that looks like, and then making sure that we understand that, North Hobart, when they bring pressure, they can turn the ball over, and then their talent, although it's only young and inexperienced, takes over there. So we need to make sure that, we come to play, especially early. Off the bye is important that we re-establish our brand, number one, but we put North Hobart under some real pressure early on, because there's no doubt that they'd be doubting whether they can win the game or not and win games. So we're looking to put that doubt in their mind.
Well, the win, how were the boys after that game?
Oh, look, we were pretty deflated there. We're probably pretty disappointed, especially with our first half for effort. It was a complete contrast when we played the Tigers with our effort, especially in the first half. It was fantastic. So, look, for such a young group, we've just got to learn ways to be consistent with that effort. And unfortunately, against Lonnie, for whatever reason, off the back of the 6-day break as well, obviously training was a little bit different that week. We just didn't come to play in the first half. We did some things and fix it up in probably the second half, but still, a lot of the damage was done, unfortunately.
How tough are the Blues to match up on at the moment?
Look, any TSL club is, pretty tough to match up on. They've all got their key players. Obviously, Lonnie, have probably a lot more experienced players on the side versus our boys. Our boys are still learning how to play TSL footy and play at that level consistently. So, Thorpe early was really good. Kicked the 5 in the first quarter and a half, and we threw young Bailey Walker back on him, who'd done an absolutely fantastic job and kicked to 1 point for the rest of the afternoon. So there was still some highlights and there's still some positive things to take out of that game.
You mentioned Colin won't be playing this week. Do you have any idea if or when he will be back? Or?
It's a tough one because it's all depending on his knee. So, given he hadn't played footy for 18 months, we've just got to be really cautious on how we manage it. And look, he's eager to play. He just wants to get out there and play. But, just making sure he passes all the proper tests and that from the physio. And he's, he does a really good regime. He knows his body well enough. So we're just going to make sure that he's right to come back. We want him inside 100% because he just brings such a lift to the young players. But we won't bring him back too early if he's not ready.
Yeah, it's something that's going to be niggling at him all season, potentially.
I think it's an unusual thing for him. It's more not pain, it's just uncomfortable. So I think, and it probably just plays with his mindset as well. Not playing football for 18 months, he's just going to make sure his mindset's right when he plays as well.
Large Indigenous group in your team. It's a National Reconciliation Week. Do you have something special about that for this round?
I think there is a bit going on tonight, maybe, with the guys, and they've got a really strong culture. They've been really good to have at the club. They've been really good for the players. So we're certainly learning a lot about different cultures, about Turkey Creek and the Tiwi Islands, and what they just a lot of background stuff on that we don't know, and it's really interesting. So I'm going up there in November to catch up with them and hopefully do a bit of fishing and maybe catch a few turtles and whatever they catch up there. But it's been really interesting having them around the club, and they've settled really well. They were really shy at the start. Now they're just part of the club and part of the everyday. So I think this will be a big day for them. They're really looking forward to it, and they're really proud people of their culture and where they come from.
Big milestone for Alex Heavey this weekend. Can you just kind of talk about, I guess, Alex's influence on the club and what he means to the group?
He's one of the pioneers of our club, along with Tim Perkins and Marcus Fitz, who certainly in the early days bore the brunt of a lot of hidings from opposition clubs, and they were the ones that set the standard and the culture that you know, this group were able to follow. He's been a fantastic man to have around the club, and to see him grow through his young years, and you know, he's a bit of a lad when he was younger, and turned into a captain, best and fairest player. He's captaining the club now. It's really rewarding for him, and also the coaching staff that have spent time with him. Hurt me today. He was meant to come here today, so I'll call up late. But he's been an outstanding player and very courageous player. He's got some tricks up his sleeve that he can pull games out of the bag just off his own boots. So you know, he's a really important player for us, and it's a great reward for him to get 200 games up.
Other loss, what's the difference with Glenorchy now to the side that everyone was talking about at the start of the season?
Yeah, I think in footy there's a lot of little things that are difference. And I mean, you go to the first quarter of our first game against Lauderdale and we kicked 7 goals, 1. You go to last weekend, we kicked 2 goals, 6 and 2 out in the full. So little things like that make a difference. And if you get it right with a really good start like that, you can break your opposition. If you get it wrong, you give them encouragement and you keep them in the game. And then when they have their turn, which, you know, that last 15 minutes of the third quarter, Lauderdale played some really slick football. They have their turn and they hurt you on the scoreboard, then all of a sudden, you know, the momentum of the game changes, the psyche of the players changes. So, I mean, it's just little things. And we had little things in those first 2 games where everyone was talking about how good we were. There was a lot of little things we weren't doing well, and sometimes results mask that. And so not a lot has changed in that regard, and that we're still trying to find out where players best sit, you know, in our structure, what players can do what, and we're just trying to settle on things. And sort of, you know, I sort of tell the guys, like, it's important to remember we're 7 games in to a new coach, and even though we have some things that we do that are similar to under Aaron, we've got some things that are diametrically opposed, and we're still trying to train players into new habits as well. So a lot of little things, but also a couple of things that popped up in the Clarence game that also popped up in the Lauderdale game, which, you know, we've had to address. And the good thing is that the players, I mean, after the game straight away, they addressed them. And it's good that those things come up at this time of year. You know, you don't want to cruise through and have some results masked, and then you get later in the year and these things pop up. So we're just continuing on the same path. Obviously, we want to be a bit better for longer than we were in particularly the Clarence and Lauderdale games. When we dropped off for too long, and it took us too long to put our stamp back onto the game. So we want to be better at that, but that's no different to the talk that we had after round 2 and round 3 when we had a couple of really good wins.
Expecting a vastly different North Launceston team to the one you played earlier in the season up there.
Yeah, it'll be different personnel, but their style of game will be the same. You know, that's been a real solid foundation for them for a lot of years now. You know, when I first started watching the TSL 3 or 4 years ago to now, the building blocks of the way they play are the same, and they back themselves against any opposition to execute that plan and put heat on the opposition, test the opposition out with them coming at you and see if you can respond. So it'll be a very similar approach to the game, even though particularly their backline will be different to what it was in round 3. But our players carry a lot of confidence against North Launceston. They understand it's a huge challenge, but Glenorchy's got a really good record against North Lonnie. The 2 teams have had great battles back and forth over the years, so our guys certainly go in with a lot of belief this weekend.